Greetings and welcome once again to my YouTube channel that's dedicated to developing excellence in the areas of marketing, sales, and leadership for pharma professionals. Today, we are going to talk on a subject that's always been very close to my heart on the fundamental foundations of building success on your strategy. The measure of success of your strategy is only when you win in the marketplace. And today, we will focus on building that fundamental foundation, which is so critical to make your strategy work. But first things first, remember, strategy is all about choices to win in the marketplace. The focus of a strategy is always to win. You're not there as a participant, but you are participating there with the sole desire to win. And that is where the importance of strategy lies. According to Michael Porter, author of the book Competitive Advantage, which I believe is one of the most respected books that one ever talks about when it comes to the subject of strategy. So what Michael Porter says is that competitive strategy is about being different. It means deliberately choosing a different set of activities from your competitors in your playing field so as to deliver a unique mix of value that's sustainable over a longer period of time. So that is where the essence of strategy is. It all boils down to choices, what you're going to do, and what you decide not to do, which is as important as what you decide to do. So please be very clear about the choices that you make, and you have to prioritize these choices based on different parameters. An indicator would be the past success that you have demonstrated in your area of operations, the size of the opportunity, competitive intensity, your ability to win. These are some of the very, very critical attributes, and not forgetting the kind of resource base that you have to weave a spell of success in the market with your strategy. So these are very, very critical in determining the choices in which you will operate. However, today we are getting into a situation of trap. I don't think we have already got into it. Because when you look at the quadrant that is urgent in terms of all your activities versus the quadrant that is important for us to pursue, I think the quadrant that is important takes a backseat as compared to the quadrant that is urgent. A lot of time and energy is devoted in terms of channelizing efforts towards chasing activities, running behind timelines, and looking at all that is urgent. And this urgency seems to be spiraling. Now, when this is a predominant trait in an organization, you can easily guess what's going to happen. Yes, my dear friends, you've guessed it. Thinking is going to fall by the wayside. And if thinking is going to fall by the wayside, where will that leave room to define and craft those winning strategies? So it is very important that we take time to focus on those things that are important, apart from those things that are very urgent, and channelize our efforts, our resources, and our time to think through and build strategies. Well, friends, we may have a number of rooms. We may have an innovation board. We may have a think tank room. We may have a brainstorming room. But what's the use if those rooms are not used for the purpose in which they were created, that is to think, and think. So friends, when you have to make time to craft winning strategies, take time to think and formulate your strategies. That would be my first advice in terms of the fundamentals to building a firm foundation of success to make your strategy work. So friends, there are different clutters in which we get trapped in confusing strategy. Sometimes we equate strategy with our vision. Vision is something that is long-term, aspirational, and strategy is something that defines your roadmap to achieve that vision. So please don't confuse vision with strategy. Similarly, strategy is very distinctive from plans because plans by nature are tactical. Very often, long term is sacrificed at the altar of short term, as I just mentioned. And sometimes we define strategy as following the best practices. So these are some of the myths that we need to be very clear in our mind, and we've got to declutter the cobwebs in our mind in terms of clarifying our own stand on strategy if we are to build the foundation of success and make our strategies work. So inherently, what are the traits that characterize strategy? First and foremost, strategy is long term. Strategy is never something which you can think of for a quarterly plan. That's different. That's no strategy. Those are your campaign and your tactical planning. And those are part of achieving your goal for which you create a strategy. But short-term plans for 3 months, for 6 months is not what defines your strategy. Strategy is long-term and it evolves in consideration to competitive dynamics and to changes that happen in the marketplace. So strategy is never static, it's dynamic. But that doesn't give you the license to keep changing your strategy time and again. If you do that, you will be ineffective and you will dissipate your resources. So one has got to be focused, and change management is critical in terms of proactive anticipation of changes in the environment and orchestrating your game plan to meet those changes in the marketplace so that you're one up as compared to your competition. And strategy is basically assimilation and organization of all the resources that you have at your command, the people, the time, the efforts, and the money. So these are inherently the traits that characterize your strategy. And it's important that you don't clutter it with these myths, what I've just highlighted on these slides in terms of equating strategy with. So come to think of it, strategy is a concerted and integrated set of choices. And these choices are very, very critical in terms of building the foundation of success that I just elaborated. So there are 5 core elements in terms of laying the foundation of success and working towards make your strategy work. It all begins with number 1, what is our winning aspiration? Please note the stress here is on the word winning aspiration. Come to think of it, if you have an aspiration which is not winning, it implies that you are not playing to win. It implies you are just a participant. And if you are not winning in the marketplace, you're leaving room for somebody else to win at your expense. We may say that, yes, we are showing improvement in different parameters and different KPIs. That's fine. Improvement is good. But improvement should not be confused with a winning aspiration. See, if you're number 2 in the marketplace, you make a winning aspiration to get to number 1. Aspiration is something which is a purpose, which is all powerful motivation that drive your employees to their place of work. It is what motivates your employees to come there on the office on a Monday morning. The purpose, the winning aspiration. So your goal and your aspiration is something that defines your victory in the marketplace. Maybe becoming a market leader. If you're in the top 10, you set a winning aspiration to be in the top 5. You have to look at the wider landscape of the opportunity. Don't focus your aspiration in your covered market. If your covered market is a set of different therapy areas in the cardiovascular market, don't set your aspiration as a combination of all these therapy areas in which you operate. But you have to look at the overall opportunity of the total cardiovascular market and what is going to be your share. Maybe if you double your turnover, your market share in your covered market is definitely going to increase. But that market share in your total cardiovascular market is going to be suboptimal. So you have to equate the opportunity in terms of deciding your aspiration, which has to be a winning aspiration, which is the very purpose and the motivation that fires your team to get to their work. Now, once you define your winning aspiration, the next thing is you have to define the playground. Where is it that you're going to play in terms of meeting your winning aspirations? And this again is a set of choices. It defines the scope of your operations, the boundaries, where you will operate and where you will choose not to operate. For example, which customer segments do I target? So do I go to all the possible customers, or do I pick and choose, or do I prioritize on a specific set of customers in which I want to play with? I want to play the game with these set of customers because I know the opportunity is good. It has a great potential. Competitive intensity is something that I can manage. I have a very high capability and an ability to win in this marketplace. The cost of winning is not too high. So once all these are falling in place, you decide and choose where you will operate and where will you play. And this typically is in the choice of customer segments, the channels that you will deploy, whether it is the people channel, the digital channel, the medical rep, right? Your distribution channel. How are you going to play on all these things? You will choose the core therapies in which you will operate. So which are those core therapies which you think the propensity for prescription is the highest and where currently you are not present, where you have an opportunity gap and where your presence will cover this opportunity gap and thereby increase your presence in the overall market. These are the choices that you have to decide in terms of where you are going to play. And what geographies will you cover? Will you cover only the metros and class one town, or you will also cover extra urban, semi-urban, or do you think you have the bandwidth and the wherewithal to go into the rural markets? You have to think of your opportunity, you have to think of your capability and decide on which is the field in which you're going to operate and which is the field you're going to play to achieve that winning aspiration. So where we will play is the second most critical aspect in terms of making your strategy work. Now, once you decide your winning aspiration and where you will play, the third thing which is very, very important is in your field of play, how are you going to win? And this is where your value proposition or your competitive advantage comes into play. That's the very reason of your existence. It's the reason, the ethre in which you operate and which you work passionately in that segment. Why you choose to operate in that segment and how you will win in that particular segment is what is going to define the core of your strategy. So your competitive advantage, your value proposition, what is going to be your focus? Is it going to be cost or is it going to be differentiation? That again is a critical choice that you have to make. And let me tell you one thing, that without a differential or without a competitive advantage or a value proposition, all your efforts will come to nothing. So make sure in whatever you do, you have a competitive advantage. It can be a technological advance in your formulation that gives you a distinctive benefit over your competitors. If you have that, it's great. If not, it is for the marketeer, it is for these think tanks, the strategists, to think of what is the kind of value proposition that you will provide to your customers. Maybe this can be in your area of therapeutic initiatives that you will embark on to see how you can be distinctive and how you can build long-term customer loyalty through superior therapeutic initiative built on rock-solid science that's going to differentiate you and give you the cutting edge in your marketplace. Now, once you decide your winning aspiration, where will you play, how you will win, the next thing what you've got to look at is what are the capabilities that I must have. So in order to create a differential, what are the set of unique initiatives or unique activities that I need to embark on? Currently, whatever am I doing, is it sufficient? Is it adequate? Or is it strong enough to be perceived as value added by my customers? If not, we've got to get back to the drawing board. And the key lies in generation of insights, in understanding the met needs and the unmet needs of your customers today, and see how you can play on these needs, especially the unmet needs, and how you can come out with a winning proposition that gives you a unique advantage over your competitors. Here I have a very interesting narration to share from one of my experiences in my previous companies. We were operating in the therapy area of angina. We set a winning aspiration. We were number two. And our winning aspiration was, let's be number one within a year. Where we will play, we said, yes, there is a gap. There is an unmet need. A lot of angina goes undetected and undiagnosed. And this is very common at the level of the primary care physician. So the primary care physician was the focus area of our efforts. We decided we will play in this area of our primary care physicians. How we will win? Well, the insight that we gathered was that, and this is no rocket science, it just came from interaction with doctors, that most of angina today or chest pain is undetected of cardiac origin. And people confuse it with gas, right, or muscular pain, and they get the wrong kind of treatment. So the need was, can we create some tools that will bridge the diagnosis gap, that will raise the threshold of sensitivity for clinical suspicion of angina. And this we could do with a simple checklist, which was already documented in the literature, and where there were international guidelines, which we adapted into the national scenario and national clinical milieu, considering the practice of our doctors. And this was then published, it was widely disseminated, we created simple questionnaires, and it was integrated into the ethos of clinical practice, which gave us a cutting edge. And this, when it was scaled up to more than 40,000 physicians, that really helped us to get the winning edge. And lo and behold, in a year's time, we actually moved ranks from number two to being number one in the therapy area of angina. So have a winning aspiration, decide your playing field, your winning proposition, develop your capabilities in terms of the skill sets of your people, in terms of the coverage, in terms of your activities. Coverage is very important. One question you need to ask is, are you adequately deployed to have that kind of coverage, which will give you a critical mass to tap the opportunity in that particular segment? If not, then what do I do? Should I increase the number of doctors in my current DVL? Do I have the capacity and the bandwidth for that? If I have, then by how much can I increase? And will that give me the bandwidth to optimize my coverage in the market, or should I add more territories? Should I add more people? How many more customers should I add? These are the capabilities you think you need to develop, and you have to work on these. Plus the skill sets of our people, the marketing people and the sales people. How is my sales rep when he stands in front of the doctor? Is he able to connect? Is he able to communicate on the same wavelength? If not, then we've got to bridge that gap. Today, digital is ruling our landscape, and digital is a very critical piece of your overall strategy. How strong are you in terms of technological innovation? Do we have the wherewithal to create internal resources to have that digital innovation, or do we need to outsource? What are the gaps that we have currently in our capabilities, and how do we bridge these gaps to achieve our winning proposition? So these are the capabilities that think tanks must think of in making your strategy work. The fifth and very important is, what management systems do we need, which is the support systems, right? And how do we measure? So what are the KPIs and what are the matrices that we set in place to understand the effectiveness of what we are doing and how we are moving up in terms of our progress indicators? Is our managers able to do a root cause analysis from the information systems that we have? Do we integrate big data and data analytics to come out with insights that help us to understand the root cause? And through this root cause, how are we course correcting? How is our training structure today, structured around? What is our approach towards training? What is the frequency of training? What are the different touch points that training has with the team? And how do we work on building the capability and the skill set of our people? Is training adequately deployed as we talk about deploying our resources for coverage? These are the questions you need to ask. How is your current incentive system? Is your incentive system really geared towards increasing prescriptions, or is your incentive system towards just target achievement and growth? Well, these are the questions that you need to ask in point number 5. What management systems do we need? So friends, to summarize, strategy is a very integrated set of different choices. I repeat, number 1 is the winning aspiration. Your aspiration should be all about winning and not just about participating in the marketplace. Second is determining your operating area in which you will play. the choices that you make in terms of your geographies, channels, your customers, your core therapy areas. So these are very critical in terms of where we are going to play and deploy our resources. The third is how we will win. What is the competitive advantage? Do we have a technological innovation, or do we need to create some innovation in our therapeutic initiatives? How do we create that wow factor for our customers to build sustainable long-term loyalty? The fourth is what capabilities do we need to build in terms of our people, in terms of our skill sets, in terms of the resources that we must deploy. And third is what are the support systems that we need to build in to support our capabilities and our aspirations. So these are the critical fundamentals for building long-term strategic success. I do hope this has given you enough of pointers to think in terms of how you can think of all these five elements and fit together in your strategy to make those choices and win in your marketplace. So thank you very much, friends, for sharing your time to listen to my views on this very important subject. I do hope it has given you good pointers to build up for your future plans and future aspirations. Remember, friends, if you like the deliberations, don't hesitate to click on the like button. Don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel, to comment and to share as much as you like. Thank you very much and wish you good luck and all the very best in formulating winning strategies for success.